Hello, YouTube land, and welcome to the Get In and Get Out Nintendo podcast, episode 65. For to go, Caleones for the big show. I am your host, Dantes, and of course, joining me like always, Caleones. How you doing, Caleones?
Hey, how you doing, Dantes? How you doing, everybody? And I think I probably need to adjust my camera a little because you look taller than me, and I don't want you to look taller. I'm actually a little bit taller than you, so I'm just gonna fix this a little, so people get a little better impression of our real heights. But this is a special edition of our podcast. It's gonna be a little bit different. Dantes is gonna take care of explaining everything after he does the rigmarole. So Dantes, go ahead and take it away.
It is indeed a special episode today because there's been a lot of rumors about, of course, the Nintendo 64 Mini, and we want to take advantage of that. We did a video a while ago, and we never posted it, giving you kind of our wish list of what games we would like to see on the N64 Mini. But I think it's time to bring that video back, show it to you guys. There was no news this week. There were really minor news. I guess a couple of news to kick it off really quickly. Diablo 3, they're saying they're not bringing cross-platform play, which sucks. Hopefully they'll change their mind. Hopefully they'll look into it. The other big one was that Yokai Watch was delayed in Japan. Quickly, I do want to say, if you guys are fan, tell Level 5 Games to bring Ni no Kuni and a Ni no Kuni 2 to the N64 because Yokai Watch really looked really good. And it's just reminded me how those two games could come to the to the Nintendo Switch, not to the N64. I think that's gonna be for a while. But anyway, I think those are kind of the biggest pieces of news. But the other piece of news, of course, there's some N64 images that leak today or this week. But with that said, let's do the rigmarole so we can start the show quick. I want to welcome everybody to the Get In and Get Out Nintendo podcast episode 65 right here at the Force In Unison gaming channel. Please remember to subscribe, like, and comment so you can make these two crazy MS happy. Also remember, if you don't want to see ugly faces, we got a solution for you. Go to SoundCloud and iTunes and download this podcast for free. Rate us over there so you can choose love. Also, description box below so you can see the full channel schedule, peeps. We need to start watching those shows. If you're subscribed, watch those shows. Remember, Monday, PlayStation Monday, Wednesday, Nintendo Wednesday, Friday, Fortnite Friday, and of course, Saturday, Force In Unison streams. Also, Facebook page at Force In Unison Gaming. And Dantes says, finally, go to forceinunison.wordpress.com and give some clicks and love to my boy Caleones. With all that said, we'll kick it off talking about the leaks of the images, and then we're going to start our video wish list. So I'm going to show in the screen right now, covering our faces, the two screenshots that came out showing the N64 Mini. Caleones, do you think these images are real?
Well, I'll say if the images are not necessarily real, and I think we got the overlay kind of covering the images themselves. So
No,
it's like
it's pretty good. Trust me.
it's pretty good. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. Trust
So
me. No.
so guys, if you pay attention, like I think is if they are not real, they made an extremely awesome job, producing them. How you can actually change the slot where you put the N64 controllers and connect the I guess either the Wii mode and things like that into it, or the N64 with the cable that you would normally use, starting with the Wii U, and subsequently the classic consoles. This tells me that if they were to make it this way, not only can you use the N64 controller that comes with the classic edition, but the regular N64 controllers, if you have those as well. I mean, they didn't like stop working, or the joystick portion didn't break, or because they have certain issues with them. But it looks, I mean, it looks real. We don't know yet if it's real or not because Nintendo hasn't made the official announcement. After seeing the next Classic Edition and their Super NES Classic Edition, everybody figured that there will be a Nintendo 64 Classic Edition as well. So I believe that if they are not real, they I mean, whoever did an awesome job with them, like I said. So I would like to believe that it is, and if it is, maybe it is closer to be coming out than everybody else thinks. So hopefully that means before the holiday season. So Dantes, what do you think? Like, does it look real to you? And when do you think it's gonna come out if it is indeed real?
So I honestly don't think they're real. I honestly thought, and this is just personal, right? They had the memory expansion cover still there. Why would you have that if they were real? It looks like an N64, and they just had close pictures of it. The how you plug in the controllers, that could make it a little bit. You could say, "Oh my God, they look real," but I don't know. Even then, I think you can easily fake that. Like if you remember the Switch picture leaks that happened before the Switch was officially announced. Everybody thought they were real. The guy did it on a 3D printer. Looked real as hell, right? And everybody was saying, oh my God, this is how the N64, excuse me, this is how the Nintendo Switch is going to look like. Ended up being a fake. I believe this is a fake, but even if I believe these pictures are fake, I will say, though, that it's gonna happen. I believe that Nintendo has made a lot of money out of the mini consoles. The NES Mini and the Super NES Mini have been a hit, and I believe it would be dumb for Nintendo not to bring the N64 Mini. It's almost like these micro consoles have taken over the virtual console itself, and that's why Nintendo's not offering these games. They're trying something different with the Switch, being more in a sense of a service base, kind of like Game Pass, but that's why you're probably not getting the games to buy, which I don't agree with it, but it is what it is. But I believe the N64 Mini will happen. Anything to add, Caleones, before we start officially our video of the N64 wish list of what games we would like to see? Of course, warning, this is pre-recorded, so we did this almost a year ago, close to 8 months ago. The first 4 minutes, you won't see our faces, but you will see our faces after 4 minutes. I made a mistake and left the thumbnail up as we recorded the video for the first 4 minutes, but I will show you the NES Mini leak pictures while that ends, and we can go into our beautiful faces. I know you guys want to see our beautiful faces, so it's all good. Anyway, Caleones, anything to add before we start with the N64 Mini wish list?
Well, I guess the only thing would be who won the generation in when you had the N64, the Saturn, and the PlayStation out. Who won that generation?
PlayStation 1.
And who would win in between the N64 Classic Edition and the PlayStation 1 Classic Edition?
N64, I believe.
So I believe that Nintendo should bring it out before the holiday season, just so they can get a little bit of redemption out of that generation, because I would say that's the one that started the the downhill spiral when it came to Nintendo and PlayStation overtaking them, especially with the PS2 after, because the PS2 is the highest selling console ever made. But I just want to see that once again. It brings back the memories of the '90s when you had the console wars and the real console wars, like it used to be back in the days, not the ones they have right now. It just doesn't feel the same. So I want to see that once more time. Please, Nintendo, bring it out. PS1 Classic Edition, N64 Classic Edition on the same holiday season would be awesome.
And let me expand to that why I think the N64 would probably beat the PlayStation 1 Mini. It's a simple fact that I believe that first-party games were stronger on the N64 than the PS1, right? Sony at that time did not have the studios that they had in the past, so those games that the PlayStation 1 could bring are not as strong as the N64 first-party games. Now, PlayStation 1 had a better library because all third-party games came to it. So the question about it is, what games can PlayStation get that they're third party, because they cannot carry the PlayStation 1 Mini with just their first party outputs. Twister Metal, it did not age well, right? Wild Arms, aside that it's been a good RPG, it looks a little bit rough. Legend of the Dragoon, I never was into that RPG. Okay, so now we're getting into what?
Yeah, it was a good one. I went ahead, I played it and beat it. That was good.
Gran Turismo. You have to bring Gran Turismo. That's maybe their highest rated first party game that they came out. And also because they did not put the dual sticks, you cannot bring Ape Escape, which I would say was a strong first party game. A lot of people don't remember, but the first Ape Escape was fire, Caleones. It was fire. I had it. I played it. And it was fun as hell. But now you don't have the dual sticks, so you cannot even bring that game. Are you gonna bring Crash again? Well, Crash already came out kind of in a new generation, so Crash is out. Then you have to go. You have to bring Metal Gear Solid. You have to. If you want to put top games from the PlayStation 1, you have to bring Metal Gear Solid. You have to bring Castlevania Symphony of the Night. You know, you have to bring game, and Castlevania Symphony of the Night is also coming soon in a kind of remake type of deal for PlayStation. So it's kind of like
another one that I would put would be Resident Evil 2, but Resident Evil 2 is also getting
coming
a remake.
Exactly. Yeah. So what's left? Are you really gonna buy a PlayStation Mini to get those old games where you're getting better versions of those games coming out soon? It just doesn't make sense. That's what I'm saying. To me, N64 Mini, that's the main reason. First party games, yeah, Nintendo struggled that generation. Did not put many games on that console, but not because of Nintendo. It was because third party completely abandoned the N64. But Nintendo did put some really, really damn good games on that system, and that's what people remember from that generation. Even though PlayStation won and they did sell 100 million consoles, I have to say that a lot of people remember more the first-party Nintendo games on that generation than the PlayStation 1 first-party games, specifically. I know everybody remembers Metal Gear. Don't come at me. But Metal Gear is not a first-party game, peeps. I'm saying first-party games specifically. Anyway, with that, Caleones, do we want to start with the video? Okay. We'll be in the chat. If you have any questions, we'll answer, and we'll go from there. And, of course, here's the pictures. And we'll start. Caleones, let's start the show with the N64 Mini. Of course, like Caleones says, we're not going to go in depth. We're not going to do 25 anyway. The Super NES Mini only had, 20 games, Caleones, right? So they've been cutting it down. Of course, the games becomes bigger. They're cutting it down. But before we do that, I have to admit, Caleones, I did struggle when we were working on this list. We did struggle a little bit to get the games that we wanted. The N64, to clarify, it's a good console. It has games that basically revolutionize the industry. Mario 64 or Ocarina of Time are two of the greatest games of all time, no doubt about that. But aside from that, honestly, the console to me did struggle, and a lot of people have like a nostalgic glasses on it, like, oh, it's such a great console. Basically, when I was going through this list, I was like, I don't think this console is that good. I'm sorry. It has great games. I'm not denying that. Again, Nintendo carried the console. Like, this is where the generation Nintendo started to struggle with the third-party support. So they basically had to carry every console after this one. And it shows. And that's why the library, if you compare it to the PlayStation 1 library, there's no comparison. It's pure and simple, right? But I'm not crapping on the N64. It deserves to have an N64 Mini because I would love to play Mario 64 in HD, which I already can do that with my emulator. But anyway, I still want to say, I want to do that. And some games like Star Fox, there's really good games here that you really want to experience in full HD. So with that said, Caleones, I got the list here. We're going to go, it's not in any specific order, to clarify to the peeps. So we're going to go 1 to 16. You have the list in front of you. I'll say 1 and you'll say 1, and then we'll talk about the game and explain why it does deserve this game to be on this list. So I'm gonna start it off with the first game, Super Mario 64. Why does this game deserve to be on this list? Super Mario 64 to me is one of the greatest games ever made. It was the first time platforming was done in 3D properly. Crash Bandicoot, no. I love Crash Bandicoot, but it's not made properly like Mario 64. Mario 64, I remember the first time I saw the plumber in 3D. At that point, I was kind of going out of my Nintendo phase. I was more into PlayStation, and I was like, wait, no. I have to buy the N64. Even if it's just for one game. This game looks so good that I have to buy the N64, and I was not disappointed. I played every stage. Every music is memorable. The first time you run that field on Babam Field, you see that wide open area. When you see that big chump trying to get you, it was just magical. Walking and running and all the moves that you could pull. And you were saying, wait, but how can they do power-ups in this game? And they came up with a good solution. You had the flying Mario cap, which was really cool once you start flying with it. You have metal Mario in certain stages, the underground stages specifically. You have to turn into metal and try to run quick through the fire and get through the next section of the stage. Those are pretty well made. So they pick the power-ups in specific points in the game so you can use them to get the famous start. And this is where the whole collecting all the starts started. So again, Caleones is showing in the background a little bit of the gameplay of Mario 64. I know you see Yoshi running. That's the DS version, of course, to clarify. But still, great game. If you're talking about N64 games you want to see on N64 Mini, I think the first game you need to mention is Super Mario 64. Go ahead, Caleones. What are your thoughts on Mario 64?
Okay, well, Mario 64 basically, for me, it changed gaming forever, especially when it comes to 3D games and how you move in a 3D world. And this is the reason why I have Super Mario 64 #1 on my list, because it's I would say it's probably the most influential game of that era. And same thing how now with the Switch, for me, Breath of the Wild is the more influential game, but in this Nintendo 64 era, it changed how you do 3D games, not only for Nintendo, but for every single company in the world as well. So not only, the way that the world looked, but the movement and how how the stages were made, how you can go into different worlds, have the different obstacles, monsters, boss fights, and things like that. So it revolutionized the whole genre, but it also influenced a lot of other genres outside of platforming and or action type of games. So that's why for me it's also the #1 game on my list.
Yep, I agree. With that said, Caleones, go with the #2 game on the list.
#2, of course, is another easy one. So it's going to be The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
Yep.
And even though I believe Super Mario 64 is more influential than Ocarina of Time, at least at the time it came out, but Ocarina of Time, it took gaming to a whole nother level, especially with the freedom of movement in a world where it was so vast and so big that you could go and run from well, actually you have to go in a horse to be able to go certain places that if you went on foot was going to take you a long time. So you could go from a mountaintop to the grassy fields, from castles to caves, and it was again, Nintendo outdid themselves in a world so big, so expansive that it gave you the feel of a true adventure.
Yep. Ocarina of Time. Again, another great pick. You have to have it in the N64 Mini edition, right? To me, the great thing about Ocarina, right? First time I played it was, it was kind of Breath of the Wild, but mini. Let me explain what I mean with that. They did open a vast world for you to explore. They did not hold your hand like the later Zelda games did, right? The only most that they hold your hand was in the first stage when you were in Kakariko Village and they were teaching you how to use the moves, right? Aside from that, it was up to you to whatever you did. There was some linearity. Yes, you had to go specifically in an order to get the 3 first gems. But once you pull the Master Sword from the pedestal, you could do any temple in any order in theory, right? So I just thought that the game was so vast, it was so open with surprises. You really got lost in this world, trying to explore, trying to find a way to do the temples. And then of course the temples themselves were nasty. Right? That's old school Zelda in a sense. If you go with the water temple is one of the worst, nastiest temples in the history of 3D Zelda games. It wasn't a bad temple, I'm just saying that it was nasty. But sometimes that's what I miss about Nintendo, that challenge. So Ocarina of Time was, went 3D, but it brought that challenge from the 2D games. It wasn't that easy. You had to fight. You had to figure things out. The temples, the puzzles were really well made. That's why to this date, I still put Ocarina of Time over a lot of the 3D Mario games, 3D Zelda games, right? So that's how much this game means to me, right? And I remember this is the first time that when you're trying to get everything, you were starting to pull your hair out. Like you were like, oh, what is this crap? What is? And I was trying to get all the freaking spiders. And I remember, yeah, I was broke, right? So I remember going to Babash. At that time, it wasn't even GameStop. It was Babash, right? Oh, Electronic Boutique, sorry, right? And then I would go, and there was a section of all the strategy guys. And I would go in, and I would just go in, take like a small notepad and like, oh, where's this spider? Oh, here it is. Here I was writing the shit down so I could find all the spiders, right? Because I wanted to get them all, right? And, and again, you have to remember, this was at the time when strategy guys were not that easy to find. There was no freaking internet in my case, right? You had to figure this shit out yourself. So finding all the it was 99 spiders was a pain in the ass, to clarify. So every time I went to the mall, I would tell my parents, I'm just going to Electronic Boutique to look for games, right? And no, it was bullshit. I was there writing down well, I wanted to find the spiders. Anyway, just a personal memory that I like to share with you guys. You're probably gonna say you're crazy at mother FF, but guys, you have to remember, at that time there was no internet, so sue me. Anyway, let me go to the number 3 game, and I'm gonna stick with Zelda, because the third game again that you need to have in the N64 Mini is Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask was, it almost felt like a remix of Ocarina of Time, but done well. And what I mean with that, if you guys don't know the history, and Caleones, please correct me if I mess up with the history, but they were planning to do like a second quest on Ocarina of Time. And Onuma said to Miyamoto, wait, give me a year. I think I can build a new game from the assets of Ocarina of Time. And Miyamoto was like, in a year, you think you're going to pull this off? And he did it. And that's where Majora's Mask came from. He used the same assets, created a new world, and created a pretty good damn Zelda game. I'm not going to say it's the best one. A lot of people put Majora's Mask as one of the best ones of all time, which is fine. But still, it's a great remix. I'll put it that way. And the story of the game is so freaking depressing, right? Everything you do in that game is depressing. You know the world's ending. You're trying to save all these peoples or the side. There were so many side quests in this game. This is the Zelda that has the most side quests of any Zelda. And it was beautiful because each side quest meant something. It meant something. So again, Majora's Mask deserves to be there. Love this game. I even bought the remake or remake. It was a remake on the 3DS, and it's same for Ocarina. So again, both games look great on the 3DS. But Caleones, any thoughts about Majora's Mask?
The development time for Majora's Mask, it did take 1 year. But the original idea for the game was that Miyamoto, he wanted to kind of like do a re-release of Ocarina of Time with harder dungeons. So that was his original idea. He wanted to increase the difficulty of the dungeons, kind of like do a rework and release Ocarina of Time again. But Onuma said that, I mean, he was actually against the idea of releasing Ocarina of Time again with harder dungeons, and instead he wanted to use the same assets from Ocarina of Time to create a new game. So Miyamoto actually agreed and said, okay, as long as you finish the game within a year. And they were able to do so. So they used the same assets, finished the game in a year, re-released it, and it's one of the greatest Zelda games ever made.
Yep. Yeah, that's what's crazy. It took a year. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, let's go to the next game.
Okay, well, the next game is going to be different than pretty much anything that you have. And you're probably not going to agree with this, but I got to put it on there because of how influential it was, for better or worse. And that's GoldenEye 007. So you got to think about the GoldenEye 007 and the way that it influenced first-person shooters forever. So that's the pretty much the first game. And even though you didn't really have the two analog sticks to play the game, but the freedom of movement, and especially when you played it with two controllers, like when you use two Nintendo 64 controllers, that's when you had the real full control of the games. But It was aside from being a pretty accurate depiction of the movies in a video game form, but everything from the graphics to the gameplay to the different weapons and even the four-player multiplayer, it was absolutely I mean great fun to play. So that's one of the other games that for me. Nintendo needs to find a way to talk to Microsoft and be able to include those on the Nintendo 64.
Okay. Let me inadvertently again put the thumbnail because I'm trying to take notes, and there's numbers involved here. So every time I press a number, it'll block the screen. Also, I forgot to take the thumbnail out when we were talking, so we're like 7 minutes into the podcast still talking, and the thumbnail still covering the screen. So I apologize for that. You know, it's Christmas break. Okay, let's go about GoldenEye. I can't speak too much about GoldenEye. I did not play it. I never was a fan of shooters. I played Turok though. Turok, I enjoy Turok. I just like, okay, Turok is awesome, but this is not for me, right? But GoldenEye, I agree with Caleones. It belongs on the list because of again, another revolutionary game for console gamers, right? I know PC gamers are going to say, no, we've been playing this type of game for a long time. Yeah, I understand, guys. Trust me. But me and Caleones, we were primarily console gamers. We still are, even though I do have PC, but we still are. So to me, you have to put it on the list because it meant so much. It started what basically we know today as the multiplayer shooter, right? Even though it was local multiplayer, a lot of people were just gathering around the house. You know, again, guys, when people used to go to other people's houses to play games, caveman stuff.
Well, yeah, I will go to Dantes' house with my two controllers to pair him up with with the ones that he had, just so we would have four controllers. Try to see if maybe we can invite some other friends. We didn't, at that time we didn't really have that many friends that would come over. At least not when I went in the summer, but we tried. But
at that time, dude, I think at that time you were. Well, let me put it this way: for Super NES, yes, we had. I remember we used to do Street Fighter competitions, and we bring Javier and Paco and everybody, and we would play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in time together and all that stuff. So again, understandable. When N64 came out, Caleones already had moved to the States. So in my case, I only play single players on N64, but the N64 was built for local multiplayer. Nintendo is honestly, they're the king of local multiplayer. They have four ports. It was set up for that, and a lot of people would take GoldenEye, and even the university friends. I did play GoldenEye like once, and we went all to a friend's house. I remember the guy, Jorge. He used to have he showed me the Highlander sword. So he had even the Highlander sword. We went to his house. He had GoldenEye. Everybody started playing it. You know, I sucked because, again, I'm not great at first-person shooters. But it was, again, local multiplayer when you had to bring friends over to play. And that's what GoldenEye means, and that's how big GoldenEye deserves to be there. But anyway, let's move to the next game. And I'll put a game that also meant a lot. I guess to me, at least. I liked it. I don't think it was revolutionary, but I think I'm going to mention this one first, and I'm going to let Caleones do the other one because I think he's going to mention it too. He's a big Star Wars fan. But I'm going to go with Shadow of the Empire, right? Now, I don't mean the game was great. The game wasn't that good, honestly. But you have to remember, this is the first, if you're a big Star Wars fan, this is the first 3D Star Wars game. And at that time, I think they took it out of canon. At that time, it was canon. So Shadow of the Empire kind of took place in between Episode 5 and Episode 6. So it was kind of in the background. It was a side story, right? So that was great that you would meet up with Luke Skywalker. You would interact with all those big characters from the Star Wars franchise. But you would still play. You would still fight Boba Fett. You would still fight against big, famous villains from the Star Wars series, right? And in the last stage where you're, again, trying to escape one of the bases, you're trying to destroy it, really similar to, again, fighting the Death Star like always. Hopefully the next new movie doesn't have a Death Star. I'm going to shoot myself. But, fighting a Death Star and trying to destroy it. So, to me, Shadows of the Empire, even though it was a hard game, and normal, again, when games were challenging or normal, it was a hard game. I played it until I beat it. I still never will forget the damn robot in the stage before the final one, where he used to shoot him, he would break in pieces, and then his head would be the last one, and he would keep flying and shooting all over the place to kill you. He was really hard to kill, but once I did it, I was like, that's what good about challenge. You feel great when you finish it. But anyway, even though I don't think Nintendo would put it in the list of N64, I would put it in my list. Go ahead, Caleones.
Well, I mean, I would say like, I mean, hopefully they'll go ahead and put it on the list because right now, Disney and EA, they should be trying to get any goodwill that they can from any company and anybody. So uh, hopefully they'll make a concession and include the game. But as far as the game, up until that point, most of the Star Wars games that you have gotten in consoles were like side-scrolling games, still good games, but this was the first big 3D Star Wars games to come out in consoles. Before then, you had the TIE fighters, you had the Jedi Knights, you had those games coming out on PC, but not on consoles. So, I mean, aside it, the game hasn't really aged that well. The
No, it has not.
controllers,
No, I agree with that.
yeah, the controllers are not really that good.
I agree. Yeah.
But at the time when the game came out, and how Dantes said about how it actually mixed the Star Wars movies and implemented dash render and that story in between it without actually affecting the movies themselves. It was a great experience, especially being able to see all those events from a different point of view. So for me, it needs to be included on there as well.
Yeah. Agreed. Go ahead, Caleones, with the next one.
Okay, so the next one, and I'm gonna go with another space shooter, and you know which one I'm gonna talk about. It's gonna be Star Fox 64. Star Fox 64 for me. It is the definitive Star Fox experience. For me, it is the best Star Fox game.
Agreed.
And I hope that that was what I was hoping for on Star Fox Zero when it came out on the Wii U. Because initially it looked like they were gonna make pretty much a direct sequel to it, or at least how the gameplay looked, and then they implemented the motion, the controls into it. So that kind of screwed it up. But Star Fox 64, not only was it a good on rails space shooter, it had great action, great graphics when it came out, and the graphics still look good to this day. But also the multiplayer aspect, the dog fighting, to the point where I would take my Nintendo 64 to my high school, especially on my junior year, where in the last months, the seniors had already graduated. All the juniors like myself, we were running through the school, basically saying that we own the school now because the seniors were gone. But we would go to the library, we would get the the TVs, connect the Nintendo 64. I would have the system. Somebody else would bring the additional controllers, and we would be playing the 4-player multiplayer games on there. So we did that for almost like 3 weeks to a month because classes were already done, but we still needed to go to school. But it was so much fun. And regardless if you played it single player or you played a multiplayer, it was a great experience nonetheless.
Agreed. Star Fox 64 is a great game, but the good part about Star Fox I always like is that you play it, you could beat it. You could beat it in one sitting, right? But next time you play it, the experience could change completely if you take a different path through the game. So Star Wars 64 to me was really good in replay value. You went back to it because you wanted to see everything. You wanted to see the different paths. You wanted to see the different secrets in the stages. So again, I agree with Caleones. He deserves to be here. And again, it's another game that it has some multiplayer aspect to it that you could have fun with it, shoot and kills, have fun with friends. Because again, N64 was a great console for local multiplayer. So I agree with Caleones. I have no other scenarios. I can't speak too much about Star Fox 64 in the sense that the game was really, honestly, it was a little bit short, but the replay value was there to keep you coming back. And the chips, I can say this, the controls were great. The chips managed way better than the Super NES. So again, how adding that analog stick on the N64 controller, even though it was not a great controller, the way it was designed was a little bit uncomfortable. Still, the analog gave you more control in the 3D space in games. So Star Fox benefited greatly from the analog controller, in my opinion. So
and one thing I like to say about Star Fox 64, because you alluded to having the different paths, the increase of difficulty, going through different worlds, and One thing that actually helped that is because from the very beginning you would see the different paths. You could decide to
Yep.
go through this one. Once you made a decision to go through one, you probably couldn't go through another one, so you had to do another playthrough.
Yep.
But
Correct.
you would see it; it was there. So
Yep.
this is one of the reasons why I believe, like for example, like trophies, achievements, things like that. They're important because you have a checklist of everything that you need to do on the game, and that way you can make sure that you don't miss on the experience and that you get to enjoy everything and discover everything. And that's why, I mean, things like that for Star Fox 64, it helped because you knew you would see those paths and you would know that you needed to go through them to get the full experience, and then you will go back and do so. So yeah,
Yep.
that was another important aspect for it.
Yep. Yep. Agreed. Okay. Let's go to the next one. I'm gonna keep it. So I'm gonna leave it to Caleones too. I'm giving the big ones to Caleones. So I'm gonna keep it a little bit Star Wars related. I'm gonna put Rogue Squadron since we're talking about chips and flyers. Again, another great game. The way that the type of you play the game, it was so awesome flying this Star Wars world and trying to do things that your imagination when you're a kid. You're fighting TIE fighters. You're destroying them. Or I always remember the battle in the snow world. I forget the name of that place. Anyway, when you have to throw the cable around I'm not a huge Star Wars nerd, so I won't know all the names. What's that called, Caleones? You're a big Star Wars guy. The
Uh,
When you in the
hot,
snow area where you have to throw the cable around it and knock
yeah,
them down.
hot, HOTH,
Yeah,
hot.
Hot was the area, but I mean the Empire's
Oh,
Walker.
the AT-AT.
AT-AT. Thank you.
Or when we were kids, we would call it the at.
AT-AT. Yeah. So again,
But yeah,
Caleones knows he's way more of a Star Wars nerd than I am, so I'm sorry if I butcher names here. But I'm still a casual Star Wars fan and be able to fly all the worlds that you watched the movies coming from, and now you're doing it yourself, and again interacting with Luke Skywalker as you go through the worlds and stuff like that. I thought was really fun, and again it controlled great. It had like sub objectives in the map as you played, so you were doing those, and at the same time you were doing your main objective, and it controlled great. Again, the analog stick on the N64 really helping how you control the ship. So again, I think Rogue Squadron is an important game too, and it belongs there with Star Fox 64. So you have at least two flying games or battleship games that you can enjoy. Any thoughts about Rogue Squadron, Caleones?
well, I mean, it wasn't. When you compare Rogue Squadron to, I mean, to, uh, well, I don't know. Like it's a flying game. You don't really do anything else except for just flying uh your your X-wings and just go through different missions like as part of the Rogue Squadron. But even though from this perspective, it sounds like a more simple game, especially compared to like Shadow of the Empire, which was more ambitious,
Yep.
going through different bigger worlds and things like that. But to me, it's probably the best Star Wars experience um, that you could have, especially when piloting, the X-wings and those different airships. But and it is something that could be easily translated into modern consoles. I mean, you don't really have to do anything. You don't have to do the whole, Star Wars Battlefront 2, where you have all the I mean, the characters and the different move sets and powers. You can just keep it in the air, mission based, and do it that way. So to this day, it's aged pretty well. It still plays good to this day, and it should be hopefully included among the best Nintendo 64 games and on a potential classic edition of
Yep.
it.
Agreed. Go ahead, Caleones, with the next one.
Okay, so with the next one, and I'm gonna departure a little from the normal games. This one was another game that was found. I mean, that you can get in a different console, but for me, this was the definitive version of it, and I'm talking about Resident Evil 2. When it came out on the Nintendo 64, one of the things that you could barely believe is that they could cram all of that game into a single cartridge. By that time, games like Final Fantasy VII were Metal Gear Solid and those they moved away from the Nintendo 64 when originally they were thought about being made for the N64, and it was because of the space constraints. With the CD, you have more space that you can dedicate to this to the games and to the music and to the FMVs. But with the N64, you had the limited space. Plus, the cartridges were more expensive. So if you wanted to make a bigger cartridge, you had to basically take a hit on your profits from the game. But the Nintendo 64 version of Resident Evil was able to cram the entire game, the cinemas, and it actually gave you the best control game from the series, even though it was still the the back, forward, side type controllers, but with the analog, you would be able to control it better as well. So and it looks slightly better than the other versions as well. It looked more 3D than the small sprites from the original PlayStation and the Saturn. So yeah, for me, this is another one that needs to be included on there.
Okay. Once there we go. I'm having technical difficulties there. Anyway, so again, because I'm writing down the name of the list, the thumbnail came up. Maybe I should stop using numbers as my hotkeys. But Resident Evil 2, I played on the PlayStation. I did not play on the N64, so I cannot speak for the port. But if you're gonna make a list and that game came out in your console, it needs to be there because Resident Evil 2 meant so much for the horror genre, survival horror games. And I still remember the first time. I didn't play the Resident Evil 1 first. I played 2 directly. I remember the first time, and I got as Leon to the cup area, and you go to that cafe, and you see that zombie coming out for the first time. You're like, holy shit, what's going on here? So, and then the game, you get to that cup station, and you're trying to survive inside the cup station, the puzzles, the way that you figure it out. It was great. The first time you saw a liquor, great. Again, great moments in gaming. So again, Resident Evil 2 belongs in any list no matter what. Again, I cannot speak for the port, but great game when I play on the PlayStation 1. Anyway, I'm going to start saying numbers because we've been saying games and we haven't said numbers. So we're going to go to number 9 now for the top 16 games in the N64. I'm going to go with Smash Bros. I'm going to put Smash Bros. You have to put Smash Bros. I thought you were going to say Smash Bros. First, and I was going to say Resident Evil 2. But Smash Bros. Again, this is the first time that you had a fighting game with all the N64 characters or the Nintendo characters. That was a huge deal. Like, you were like fighting Mario, Luigi, Yoshi, Kirby. All of them were all in the same fighting game. And you were like, oh my God, again, another competitive local multiplayer game. And it's funny, again, everybody gives credit to Microsoft for creating the online multiplayer environment as we know it today, right? But in reality, the N64 has also a lot DNA in that because they are the ones developing or developed games that were meant to be competitive, but in the living room. But still, Microsoft just took that and translated to a multiplayer area, online multiplayer aspect of it. But the design still remains the same. So that's why I believe that we do need to give credit to Nintendo in building games like Smash Bros. Created that competitive scene now that we know today that is really big. Like Smash Bros. Is a big thing. That's why everybody is like, Smash, I want Smash, I want Smash. Which is fine, I understand. Smash is great. That Smash is even better because I had Shulk in that one. But my point to all that is that this is where it started. Nintendo deserves some credit in the multiplayer aspect of it. And of course, if you're gonna do an N64 Mini, you need to put Smash. Any thoughts, Caleones?
Okay. So when the original idea of Smash Brothers came out, and you were listening to, okay, so Nintendo's gonna make a fighter. They're gonna have all their characters included, and they're gonna be fighting against each other. Not a lot of people thought it was gonna be a good idea. For some reason. And especially myself, I was kind of skeptical because I was used to each character having its own franchise and all of them coming together into a fighting type game. I thought it wasn't going to work out until I actually played it with friends and we all played it together. So that's when my entire perspective of the game changed, how it played, how you will move throughout the maps and having all of them incorporated like that. But the problem I see with this is, and with the like Star Fox 64 to a lesser extent, is how are you going to include so many controllers to be able to get the ultimate experience on there. So I know the NES Classic Edition came with one controller. The Super NES came with two. Maybe this one, the 64 version is going to come out with
Put two,
two,
at least
and
minimum two. Yeah,
yeah,
you have to put two at
yeah.
least. Yeah.
But the box is going to be much bigger because by
Hey,
that
make
time
it bigger. Make it
but the
bigger.
controller itself is going to be bigger than the console. So
Hey, that's fine, dude. Make it bigger. Hey, you're on the again. If we're saying the games that really made the N64 being so, I would still remember to this day. It's those games. It's Smash Bros. It's GoldenEye. It's Star Fox 64. So you need to include the multiple controllers. You do it. Just do it, Nintendo. You know the DNA of the N64 is. So just do it. I think that's not an excuse. At least I should include two for sure, Caleones. Anyway, let's go to the next game, Caleones, for number 10.
okay, so for me, it's I'm gonna say Banjo Kazooie.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why Banjo Kazooie is, and I have it ranked over. Well, for me personally, even though Banjo Tooie can have a claim of being the better game, but for me, Banjo Kazooie, it's the better experience. It is the best 3D platformer game available on the system after Super Mario 64, and it should be on the list over Donkey Kong 64 as well. It's especially how you have the two characters interacting with each other, and how you can use one for the platforming, the other one for like hovering and flying segments and things like that. So the way that they incorporated both of the characters into it, and by this time. I mean, it was just for me, it was a master stroke from Rare because they were doing everything. So they were going from GoldenEye to Banjo-Kazooie to the Jet Force Gemini to
and
to
then
other games.
Microsoft bought them and they destroyed Rare.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry, I had to bring that
So,
up.
but yes, but that's to me that's another one that needs to be included on the list.
I did not play Banjo-Kazooie. I don't know if it's better than Donkey Kong 64, which I did not play either, right? What I do know is based on the history and what I hear from people is that Donkey Kong 64 or Donkey Kong franchise did not translate that well into 3D. But a lot of people speak highly of Banjo-Kazooie, right? A lot of people want Rare to make another Banjo-Kazooie, and when they did for the 360, it sucked. So maybe some things are best just left alone. Rare is not the same company. They're doing Sea of Thieves. This game looks like trash, but anyway,
It does not look like trash, but go ahead.
yeah, it does look like crap. Come on, Caleones. That game looks bad. Rare hasn't put a good game in like forever. So I think a lot of people speak of Rare based on nostalgia. I think the magic is gone, pure and simple. But Banjo-Kazooie seems like a game that a lot of people still speak fondly of for the N64 days. So I'm okay with putting Banjo-Kazooie in the N64 Mini. Anyway, we go to the next one, Caleones. Okay, let's see which one we're gonna add to this list here. I'm looking. I'm gonna go with Paper Mario. I'm gonna go with Paper Mario, and let me explain why. Because as Caleones knows, let me write it down here so I don't forget. We're making the list. That's number 11, Paper Mario. The reason I'm putting it is I was a huge Super Mario RPG fan, right? I would put it that that's one of the best Super NES games in that console, which is way better console than the N64. But I was so hyped for Paper Mario. I wanted, oh my god, a new RPG for Mario. Yeah, damn. And when I played, I was like, it wasn't that great. You know when I felt that back again was Mario and the Game Boy Advance when I played Mario and Luigi's Superstar Saga. I was like, yes, this is the spiritual successor to Mario RPG. I kind of wish Square would do another collaboration, and maybe the relationship is doing so good right now. They may do another Mario RPG again. I would be fine with that. But at least we're still getting the Mario and Luigi RPGs. But Paper Mario, I'm still gonna put it because you need an RPG. And this console, if there was one area that it lacked, was RPGs, and they had a couple. I'm not denying that. But compared to the PlayStation, which was an RPG machine, this console did really suffer from that genre specifically, and maybe again because it was the cartridge decision by Nintendo really hurt this console. But I want to put an RPG, and I think Paper Mario is still a good enough RPG. Deserves to be here, and I believe that if they do an N64 Mini, they will add Paper Mario to this list. Any thoughts, Caleones?
I mean, I didn't really play, Paper Mario on the Nintendo 64, so I really can't say, much about it. I will agree with you and the about the system not having that many noteworthy RPG games on it. It did have a couple of, like strategy RPGs like Ogre Battle and those, but as far as pure RPGs, not really. They didn't really have that many of them. But it is a highly regarded game. It is the first Paper Mario game as well. It's not quite, Super Mario RPG from the Super NES, but it should still be included on there.
Yep, I'm good with that. Anyway, Caleones, let's go to the next one, to number 12.
Okay, so as far as number 12, and this is where, depending on where you are at, you may go for one or the other, but we need a racing game on the system. So,
Yep.
yeah, if we need to include one of the racing games, and for me, I love Nintendo, but I'm gonna go with Rare on this one again, and I'm gonna go with Diddy Kong Racing.
Come on, man. Dude.
So.
No.
Did you have? I mean, with Super Mario's, Super Mario Kart or Mario Kart 64, you have the multiplayer aspect. You can do the racing, but with Diddy Kong Racing, it was so much about the adventure, the discovery, like finding those alternate tracks, and that it plays great as a single player game. So you don't have to worry about having friends or anything like that. But as a racing game, it was still up there. I'm not sure about if it'll be possible because of the same thing, like Microsoft having the rights to Rare. But if we're looking at Nintendo's and Microsoft relationship, and it seems like it's a pretty good one with all the cross-platform play and things. Hopefully, they'll make it possible to have it on there. If they're gonna have more games, then definitely they should include both of them. But for me, Diddy Kong Racing needs to be in it.
Sure. I don't have much thoughts. I did not play it. I don't know if it's that good. I would have included Mario Kart 64 more. It's more recognizable. But it was your turn. So I'll leave it there. I guess it's my turn. In that case, I don't want to leave my Pete's hanging. I'm going to put Mario Kart 64. So you have two racing games in this list, right? Caleones, let me put it right here. The reason I put Mario Kart 64, I wasn't a huge fan. I remember returning the game because I didn't like it that much, right? Honestly, I didn't get into Mario Kart until like the Wii. So I know that's blasphemy for a lot of people, and a lot of people are gonna kill me. But let me remove. It's hard to put numbers and then the tabs just pick. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Just came up anyway. What I was saying. Oh, so I didn't get into the Mario Kart until the Wii. That's fine. I think it's a great game. It became more fun on the Wii as they included more tracks, more characters, more modes, right? So honestly, the first two Mario Kart games were a little bit bare minimum compared to today's Mario Kart game, right? So still, you're showing the DNA of the N64, right? And Mario Kart 64 kind of was the first 3D, to clarify, not 2D, because the first Mario Kart was a 2D game. A 3D Mario Kart racer where the DNA of all the new Mario Kart games came out. So I still think it belongs on the list. Any thoughts, Caleones?
Well, I mean, if we can find a way to include both of them, and if the N64 Classic Edition would have, let's say 15 games, 16 or somewhere around that, then we may be able to find a way to fit both of them in.
Yeah, I think Mario Kart has more of a chance than Diddy Kong Racing. Just to give you a heads up.
Well. Nintendo does own the rights and the IP, so of course they will have a better chance of it. And
just saying.
Even though my absolute favorite Mario Kart game is yeah, the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the Switch version. For me, that's the best Mario Kart game ever
I
made.
agree. I agree.
But
Yep.
it's still the name, the name recognition is still there. So if people see it included on there, it's going to be even more enticing for them to get the N64. Even though you have so many other games already pulling for you to buy it anyway. So, but yeah, if you can find a space, go ahead and include it. Of course, it'll be a lot easier to include it over Diddy Kong Racing, but hopefully somehow both of them can make it in.
Yep. Okay, Caleones. Move to number 14. We're getting done. We're getting close to the end. Let's end it
Okay,
with a bang, Caleones. Let's go.
so what number is this one?
14.
14. Okay, so another one that I want to include, and I'm actually okay. I'm not gonna include Perfect Dark. Perfect Dark, for me is it's a really good game, but I still want Turok. So
Yep.
Turok for me is one of the games that first sold the system. So whenever you saw the magazines information about the N64, you would see the screens for Mario, and you will see the screens for Turok, even though the game did take a little bit of a hit graphically once it came out on the 64, but it still was a great game. Had a lot of you're basically a Native American in a world invaded by dinosaurs where you had to gain access to like futuristic weapons in order to fight. And the ambient, the difficulty, it's something that still translates to this day. Some people may prefer the second one, the Turok 2 Seeds of Evil over the first one. But I would be okay with either one, even though I do have the most fun experience from the first one because that's the first one that I played and one of the very reasons why I love the Nintendo 64. But that's why I would say to include the first Turok on there.
I'm fine with that. I played Turok. It was a good game. It was a good game. Uh, it was kind of the first, my experience of a kind of first person shooter. It's not a shooter. You use bows and stuff like that, but still, uh, it was a good game. I think it belongs in the list. It was one of the first games that the N64 had that was like a must have right after the whole Mario and Ocarina and stuff like that. So I agree with Caleones. I got no issues with this. I think we should include Turek on the list. Anyway, let's go to number 15. We're getting close to the end. Oh, we are to the end. Unless Caleones will want to add one more after my 15, but I only the other
Well,
remaining.
I'll say go ahead and keep it on 15. You can talk about your honorable mentions and other games that you believe could make it in there, but let's go ahead and keep it on 15.
So 15, I'm gonna go with Wave Racer. Right, another game, another fun multiplayer game that you would play with friends. I remember the first time I saw that water, I was like, "Oh my god, look at the water! Too much water." 7.7. Anyway, it was so graphically impressive, right? Again, the N64 has some graphically impressive games. The problem was that the cartridges were not the best way to store that much space, so it really hurt the games. But Racer was important to the N64, I believe, and I think it should be added. And it's a fun game. Again, one of the first games too that you had on the N64 when it came out. So this is a good game to have. And again, I believe that even though I'm not a fan of this type of games anymore, but at that time I used to play everything. Now when you grow old, you become more picky because you don't have as much time. But I think it belongs in the list. Any thoughts, Caleones?
Yeah, it is one of the best Nintendo 64 games. It deserves to be there. Great single player, great multiplayer game. And at the time it came out, it was really impressive and actually fun because at first you wouldn't think that would be one of the most fun games that you would play on the system. You're just kind of like just or being on the water. So you actually didn't figure that would actually be fun, but it turned out to be a great experience and should be on there. I should mention though that there's other games that do deserve to be considered. Hopefully, it's going to be more than 15. But if we're looking at the Super NES Classic Edition, which it had 20 games plus Star Fox 2, making it 21 games, going down from the 30 that the NES Classic Edition had. So the Nintendo 64 games are going to be bigger, so they might go down again. But we still need to mention games like Conker's Bad Fury. We need to mention sports games like Mario Golf, Mario Tennis. We also need to mention games like like Blast Corps, Glover, and even
Perfect
one that
Dark,
we didn't
right?
mention, Perfect Dark, F-Zero X. Excite Bike 64. So those are games that could very well make it into the system, but for us, if you're going to be talking about 15 games that absolutely have to be on there, it's probably going to be those 15 that we mentioned.
Anyway, he got muted there, so I apologize for that. Anyway, we're back. Caleones is not in the room, so Inkling G, if you can let him know. But anyway, we wanted to do that video. It was pre-recorded a while now. It was done for last December, but with the N64 leaks, and we know that it's going to happen, that it's close to happening, we wanted to reuse the video since there was not many news this week. But with that said, since Caleones is not around, I'm going to start ending the show by saying thank you, everybody who stopped by and watched this special episode of the Get In and Get Out Nintendo podcast, episode 65, right here at the Force In Unison Gaming channel. Please remember to subscribe, like, comment, and hit that bell so you can make these two crazy MFs happy. Also, remember, if you don't want to see an ugly face, it's all good. We got a solution for you. Go to SoundCloud and iTunes and download this podcast for free. Rate us over there so you can show us some love. There you go, some Xenoblade music. We have to put it. I almost forgot. Also, go to the description box below so you can see the full channel schedule. Remember, tomorrow, PlayStation Mondays, I will keep playing a little bit of Spider-Man. Wednesday, Nintendo Wednesday, Friday, Fortnite Friday, and of course, Saturday, Force In Unison streams. Go back. We had a lot of good time playing Splatoon. Me and Caleones going one-on-one, and I think we're going to do it again this weekend because it's Splatfest, so we want to celebrate Splatfest with a bang. Also, Facebook page at Force In Unison Gaming. And finally, and Dantes says finally, go to forceinunison.wordpress.com and give some clicks and love to my boy Caleones. With all that said, thank you again for joining us, and long live Nintendo. See you guys.